And what do you think are the current problems of the musculoskeletal healthcare delivery today?
Well, there are a number of problems. So the first is that um, when someone enters the healthcare system for a musculoskeletal problem, they start at primary care, and primary care therefore makes the decision for roughly 70% of where people start out in terms of what they should do for their musculoskeletal problem. And yet, in over half the medical schools in this country, there is very little to no formal musculoskeletal training. So that's one issue, and we're working hard at trying to address that. Um, the other issue, there's two more in my opinion, and doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means, based on my experience and what I've read in the literature, this seems to be a reasonable answer as to why. But it's the prevalence of derangements. You, as an MDT trained clinician, recognize what a derangement is. But when you look around the country, and I don't quote me on this, but I think there are over 150,000 physical therapists in the United States, and yet there are fewer than 7,000 that are credentialed in MDT. And so the concept of a derangement, a rapidly reversible musculoskeletal condition, is actually a foreign concept to most of the conservative care clinicians who address these problems every day. Another big problem is the prevalence of spine-related peripheral joint complaints. And if you read the last well, there's a third paper that just came out, but if you look at the last three papers that have come out, Richard Rosedale has been an author on all three of them, looking at the prevalence of spinal-driven peripheral joint presentations. They're actually quite high, and yet most clinicians, that being physical therapists, chiropractors, primary care doctors, pain management doctors, and orthopedic surgeons, aren't taught to fully screen the spine in the presence of a peripheral joint complaint. So when you put all those pieces together, right, the primary care doctors are the initial contact person in over 70%, and yet their training is minimal. The training for conservative care clinicians around the concept of rapidly reversible spinal and peripheral joint complaints is really not that good in terms of the training. And then the concept of a full spinal screen in the presence of all peripheral joint complaints is not a hallmark or a highlight of any conservative care clinicians' education. And I think when you put those three pieces together, you've got a perfect storm for a poor delivery system.